Standing by for us at the National Results Centre again is our fellow anchor Gareth Edward. Gareth, I believe you've got the Chief Electoral Officer with you right now.
That's right, yeah. Welcome back to NROC as we start to get towards what some would say is the business end, eNCA and taps of the numbers, although it should be, which is what we're going to speak to Mr. Mamabolo about in just a moment. Very kindly agreed to come and speak to me. I saw him out at breakfast this morning. He didn't realize I was going to hijack his breakfast, so he has to come talk to me. But just while we're talking numbers, very quickly, the one board you can see behind me over my left shoulder, that is the national picture. That has now gone from 64 up to 69 as well. And the screen on the far right-hand side I see has gone up by 1% more. That is Gauteng. We're currently sitting at 56%. Although, Mr. Mamabolo, I'm beginning to realize I might need glasses like you to just strain my eyes as I look behind me. All right, so a couple of things we want to talk about, so appreciate you for joining us on eNCA. What happened to the 90%?
Well, that was our target. We worked hard at it. We didn't meet it, but we didn't stop working. In fact, at the level of capturing, in other words, the results that are in the system, we're sitting at 90. What is lagging is the scanning and the auditing of those results, which are very important and necessary verification procedures. We are looking at this thing quite carefully, yet expeditiously.
So when we start talking about timelines of when results could be announced, because we expect to see you on the podium there sooner rather than later, how far back has your timeline been pushed out? South Africans want to know. We stood in queues for hours. When are we going to get a result?
Well, our plan is that the Commission will declare the results tomorrow, sometime in the evening tomorrow, and there's no change to that plan. I've been talking to my provincial colleagues this morning, and they assure me that most of the results will be in, almost complete by into the evening today.
Now, I understand that as the Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Mamabolo, you can't keep your finger on the pulse of every possible problem. But while I do have your attention, we're seeing some issues with capturing. Maybe it's a data transfer problem. This is what Heidi Jokos was talking about earlier when you and I were watching her with her phone. Some areas not capturing results at all. I think the example she used is Palabora. Something we should be worried about? Is that a technical glitch? How do you put the minds of South Africans at ease when they don't see their ward coming up on the app or the website? What do you tell them?
Yeah, no, look, if there are glitches, which you expect, of course, in an operation of this scale, we do have intervention measures. I'm not aware of a particular problem in Palabora, but we are able to go check. We have our partners who, if there's a network problem, are able to go resolve it speedily. There are other alternatives. I mean, if fiber is a problem, we have LTE as a failover, and we also use Wi-Fi in certain instances. So there shouldn't be really a situation where we are completely not capturing.
Did you get a fright when you saw the voter turnout number? Did you think there was a technical glitch, or were you expecting such low voter turnout? I can't imagine you're going to say yes.
No, we anticipated a low voter turnout.
This low?
Already in July, we did indicate that when we adopted the Municipal report. So already then we knew, because we've been saying to the country, the national message has been clear: stay indoors, avoid congregate situations, and so on. Now we've built almost a national consciousness about the need to avoid congregate areas. We've tried very hard with voter education, even on TV, to try to assure people that it will be safe to go to stations. But I think to move that consciousness in a matter of weeks was always going to be a big challenge.
And I suppose the problem is going to be that many will argue this has been free and fair elections, but because of COVID-19, as you're suggesting, Mr. Mamabolo, this hasn't been the most diverse of elections.
Look, one has to assess an election in its context. In other words, when you apply the standards of freeness and fairness, you've got to apply it in context. And you've got to adjust your standards according to the dictates of that context. In this situation, you have a pandemic. In July, the country was almost shut down again. We had to postpone our registration weekends twice because of the high levels of infection in July, beginning of August. Almost the planning process stopped evolving at that point. And certain things didn't happen as they ought to have happened according to the plan. Now, you have the Concord decision, and within 2 weeks of that, you've got to run a registration weekend. A registration weekend where you open 23 service points within 2 weeks.
So it's a multiplicity of problems. This should not have been the way an election should have been run. Essentially is what you're saying. There were issues with courts, there were issues with COVID-19, and I think that will be unpacked as we go along, and I think South Africans would generally be understanding of that. A final question to you, though, Mr. Mamabolo, where South Africans don't quite seem to be so understanding. The number of tweets I received at Gareth Edwards SA, and you'll be aware of the problem. People were on voter registration rolls, they arrived, they couldn't vote, not enough ballot papers, scanner issues. We've spoken in previous elections. Those problems there, again, for someone watching now who wasn't able to exercise their democratic right, even though they did everything they were supposed to, what do you tell that person this morning?
Look, Gareth, this is a local government election, and the discipline that the Concord in the CAM case gave us is ensure that people register in the wards in which they live now, and that they vote in those wards and nowhere else, because people can't elect councillors in constituencies in which they don't live. That's really the jurisprudence from the court. So it may be that Simon Mamabolo was registered at a particular station, voted there for many elections before, but that is not their ward. And they can't vote, therefore, in a ward in which they don't live. They have to be moved into the correct ward based on the address given.
So this is where everyone should have checked their registration before. But okay, what we're not answering, though, Mr. Mamabolo, is my understanding is that there was always going to be enough ballot papers for 100% of the voters arriving. Arriving at the ballot station. The voter turnout is so low, you should have enough ballot papers 3 times over. But some ballot stations, voting stations, they ran out.
No, Gareth, that one, there is no excuse for that. It ought not to have happened. We supplied every municipality with 100% of people registered. Our officials in the logistics value chain made mistakes to undersupply and hold back buffer stock and so on, which was not a national instruction. I apologize to those that may have been affected by this. It ought not to have happened. And I offer, as I say, our apologies, and we'll be taking corrective action against the officials affected, because it has affected people's ability to vote.
It does. A last question to you, and I'd like us to just look behind us as well. We're starting to see your IEC officials coming in. These are the hard-working members that are putting this all together. Just as I say goodbye to you, Mr. Mamabolo, just a word of thanks, I think, to all of them, and just to help South Africans understand just how logistically difficult all of this is. And this is just one of the results operation centers.
Thank you for the opportunity. You're right. These are colleagues who are really working out the mechanics of an election. If a voting station reports or somebody reports that at the voting station there are no ballots, these are the people who intervene to ensure that ballots are delivered in enough quantity at the relevant place. If a voting station is not opened, these are the people who really intervene and make sure that operations return at the station. But I want to take the opportunity really to thank the heroes and heroines of this election, those 200,000 officials who work under very difficult circumstances to ensure that we get to this point where we have a result. What we offer them compared to the effort are not commensurate. So it's really a service it's an act of civic engagement, and I really, from the depth of my heart, thank them for having come to the party to help South Africans deliver this election.
And I think that's why it's so important that I wanted to get that from you as well, because I don't think people realize what actually goes into the team sitting behind us. It's not just litres and litres of coffee, I can assure you. Mr. Mamabolo, by the way, thank you for all the coffee supplied. It's keeping me and the entire team going here at eNCA. Chief Electoral Officer from the IEC, all the very best. I'm sure we're going to talk again as we get closer to what, as we know, eNCA and TAP should have been the 90%. Obviously, it was a target that was missed. Has the board changed? 69% for the national count at the moment as well. So let's head over back to you in Studio 1. We'll be back here again a little bit later. We're expecting politicians, we're expecting media briefings, we're expecting updates. The moment it happens, of course, we'll have it for you here from NROC on eNCA.